Hola, Madistas. Welcome to another episode of the Let's Be Real podcast. So today, together with Sahel, we're going to be previewing the game against Celta Vigo at the Bernabeu. It's finally back at the Bernabeu, like after basically 4 games on the trot. Actually, I think it's 5 if you include the Champions League match as well, because we played in
Yeah,
Greece. So it's going to be, I think it's more than 5 because we played in Greece. We played Liverpool at Anfield as well.
yeah,
So
I
it's
think
six
it's five.
games.
Yes, six. Yeah, six including that
It's six
Thursday
games because
game.
we played 4 away games in the Champions League. So it's 6 games on the trot. I think since the last game we played was against Valencia, which we trashed them 4-0. That was the game we played lastly, those good days where we thought, like we clicked gears, and a lot has happened since then. Since that day, we lost the 5 point lead at the top of the table. Now we have a 1 point deficit. We lost to Liverpool in the Champions League, a very, very sheepy semi Liverpool. We lost to them, we made them look like world beaters again. And then we barely scraped through, the thriller with Olympiacos in Greece. And all of that finally ended, with the great display that came also at a very great at the San Mames against Athletic Bilbao, which culminated in a 3 Real Madrid victory, like something that I honestly wasn't expecting. I had actually predicted a 2-2 Real Madrid draw when we were discussing the game prior, actually, because I wasn't that optimistic that we could keep, and also I wasn't that optimistic that actually we could, win an away game, actually. So, and how was the game?
Yeah, firstly, it's great to be here, especially after Real Madrid victory after so long. Like it feels like a league victory after so long. It feels like um ages since we actually saw this team function properly, and suddenly the I'm not gonna say the momentum is shifting, but the mood in the Spanish capital is certainly shifting because with a statement victory like that, you would expect better things to come. And it wasn't just a 3-0 victory where we took our chances well. Uh, we also created plenty and we dominated the game. I think one of the key things that has been highlighted even during this poor patch of games is Kylian Mbappe and his prolific ability to put the ball in the net time and again. Um, I mean, we saw the poke against Olympiacos, but even outside of that, he's been exemplary. I think he's what now got 62 goals this calendar year already. So I think the one the one thing that stood out to me in the Athletic Bilbao game was the fact that we got the ball to Mbappe in a much more direct sense, and we found him in spaces that where he was able to change the game uh, more aggressively. I would say because he now even has the confidence to go for goal from 25, 30 yards out. We saw that multiple times um, against Athletic Bilbao actually, and he also converted one of those goals. Actually, both of his goals were from outside the penalty area. Um, so I think that has improved a lot. Defensively, I wouldn't say there was too many issues. I think most of the chances that we conceded were from Trent's side, and that is pretty much expected. Which uh, with a defender like him, you are going to let some balls through, and then Militao and Rudiger, they do their best to cover up to uh, what what they're capable of, and some chances still leak through, but Courtois was there luckily to save one effort from close range. And yeah, outside of that, I didn't have too many complaints. Kamavinga had an exceptional game. Unfortunately, he is injured as well, on top of Trent's injury. And Vinicius, actually, I was going to mention him that it's just his lack of, he's not killer instinct enough at the moment. He takes 3 or 4 chances to get in his groove, really, and that's worrying for me because in the bigger games he's not going to get 3 or 4 chances to stamp his authority on a game. So it's not a matter of him not being on the end of chances. It's just him not finishing them. Yeah, outside of that, I think this is a good opportunity uh, for us to cement our place, especially now with the winter break looming, just 1 point behind Barcelona. I think we'll take that with the kind of form we've been, because Celta Vigo is a team that we've historically dominated and played well against. I don't think I think we have still an unbeaten record against them, long-standing since 2014, and also we haven't lost to them at home in about 20 years. Um, so this is a team that we've historically done well against. Celta Vigo are 12th in the league, so uh, I shouldn't be too worried. But also, these are exactly the kinds of teams and exactly the kind of games that we have surprisingly squandered. So you can't really say anything with Real Madrid. Like you just mentioned, Farooq, we both of us weren't expecting a statement performance at the San Mamés, but that was the uh, that was what happened that night.
Yeah, actually, that's the thing. Like, I mean, the San Mamés was a was a good game, at least in moderation, considering all what's happened. Related, it wasn't a complete performance, and also, we talked about that a lot. After the game during the post match, but one thing I've always thought is like this season, like we've been a lot more comfortable at home. I think we've won all our league games that we've played at home this season, actually 6 out of 6. So I kind of feel like that also, gives the team more motivation and more, confidence going in. But I just wanted to, touch upon what you just talked about. You talked about Kamavinga getting injured and also Trent Alexander getting injured. So this is a repeating team, right? This is a recurring team. And I think we also talked about that, if you remember, Sahel, about how our midfielders have not been able to take that next step, And we talked about one of the primary reasons for a player like Kamavinga also has been like he's been continuously being injured, a lot, and he's not been able to take that step. And unfortunately, we had one of those games where he performed really, really well. He was one of the better midfielders, if not the best midfielder on the pitch. And all of a sudden, again, it's another injury. And then Trent also had one of the games where he showcased some of the ability that he has, that which we were highlighting about that Mbappe the ball quickly, a quick switch over, that long switch that be to make a lot Liverpool and stuff like that. And if we find basically in the first 20 minutes he made around 4 or 5 of those passes to either Vinicius or to Kylian Mbappe, and all of a sudden we're hearing he's going to be out for 2 months. We don't have a right back. Dani Carvajal out till the early part of next year, and the other option is gone. So this is quite interesting. Actually, we're talking before even we started the live recording that it's quite strange. Like you look at Trent. Okay, last season he was quite injured a lot for Liverpool, but then before that he was like almost an Iron Man. Who never gets injured and stuff like that. And it's not just about Trent. You look at a lot of players and literally like our track record of injury hasn't been really good. Like it's either Trent, Rudiger has documented one, Militao or two unfortunate injuries, Nichols there, David Alaba, we don't even know what's up with him. Dani Carvajal's story is there. Ferland Mendy, another, enigmatic situation, So like it's just like basically the midfield and the defense have all been, like yeah, it's just been in and out, in and out, in and out. And I don't know, like, is there a pattern there? Because, like, I mean, I can understand where you want to say, like, oh, Trent is a lazy trainer, or like this or that, or whatever it is. But, like, it's not like we have a lot of credit in the bank to kind of support, that, oh, yeah, we're a team of Iron Men and, like, all our players are fit. It's just Trent that's the odd one out.
Yeah, in fact, it's the exact opposite. If you look at the squad right now, not even people like Tony Rudiger are exempt of fitness issues. I would say the only one who's consistently been fit for a selection would be Fede Valverde, um, and maybe even Vinicius Junior. I think to a certain extent as really worked on his fitness to an extent that he doesn't miss any games anymore due to injury. Um, with Trent, you did mention that he was injured for a good part of last season as well. And last season, if you will notice, was the season where Arne Slot actually expected and demanded a lot more from Trent, not just going forward but also defensively. He was asked to cover for his teammates like a traditional right back would do. So when you ask a player to go out of his way and work on his game, be it in a physical sense or a mental, psychological sense, it's gonna take a toll on that player. And I think a good part of how worn out Trent seemed towards the latter part of last season was down to that, because he had worked incredibly hard, and I think even the player himself had seen the Real Madrid move coming, so he wanted to come to Real Madrid a more complete player. So I don't doubt his motivations. I don't. In fact, I don't doubt his work ethic either. Like I know there's one narrative of him being a lazy trainer, and parallels to Eden Hazard have been resurfacing on Twitter, but I don't pay much heed to all that stuff, and neither should player like Trent because uh, with the kind of ability that he's got, it's just strength and conditioning, basic things that you know once you play a game and you recover again, it's you go and play a game after 3 days. Well, how is it not going to get to you? Even the best of players, like I mentioned, Tony Rudiger, he uh, before he was playing 60, 65 games in a season, uh, he wasn't this injury prone either. Like I'm sure even the best of bodies of players could be run into the ground. And again, that's only part of the reason with Trent. Um, but I also do believe that Sanitas, like, come on. Uh, I know that the whole Sanitas bandwagon has passed for a few years now, and we haven't been talking about them particularly as much. But Real Madrid's medical department just never seemed to get it right at this point in the season, especially when the workload is it's hitting peak levels with these players, and they're just about to go on a break. I don't think we've ever gotten that right in recent history, and that's something that really really disappoints me because it's probably the most crucial part of the league season to build points, and this is where most teams make or break the remainder of their seasons. So it doesn't help Xabi Alonso, certainly not.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's a yeah, it's a very good point to make. Also, like putting also into context that I think Trent has played 90 minutes for three. I had played 90 minutes for 3 straight games, if I'm not wrong. And also consider that also he was just coming back of injury, towards I think the end of October or the beginning of November, something like this as well. So I think maybe that workload somehow has eventually he's like more or less written a check that his body could not cash, and eventually like he's suffering the aftermath of that, or rather the consequence of that. So it's quite interesting, as you rightly point out, like it's Anita, so it's I don't know, whatever, because if I remember correctly, when Xabi Alonso came as well, I think Antonio Pintos was actually given a more, was really his role in the team was relegated, and like Alonso brought alongside with him some of his guys, I guess, if I remember correctly, to focus on the fitness and the therapy of the players and stuff like that, physiotherapy of the players. But yeah, it's really not looking too good on a club of the stature of Real Madrid that you're constantly having this. And I mean, the parallels with Hazard is different when you go to Trent, because like Hazard came overweight, you understand. Trent, okay, got injured, muscular injuries here and there, but like Hazard came overweight, and I think it's quite an unfair I'll see that, because basically that's also how it with Hazard, like he
If
could not stay fit to
yeah,
save his life.
if a player of the stature and work ethic of Jude Bellingham, and we know how seriously Jude Bellingham takes his fitness. If a player like that can get injured, then uh, can get injured time and again, correction. Um, then I think other players in other positions can also face the same issues. It's just you've got to limit that in crucial stretches of the season, because now Xabi Alonso is gonna go out and have to find a replacement in either Fede Valverde or a Raul Asensio kind of player, because it's not ideal either of those situations. Raul Asensio playing out of position doesn't really seem tidy. He seems too timid with the ball at his feet. Um, and even defending, he defends like a centre back, right? Which is not the end of the world. And also Fede Valverde, you ideally want him to play in midfield. It's the same Eduardo Camavinga at left back situation we had a couple seasons ago, and thank God we don't have a shortage of left backs at the moment. Um, but I feel sorry for Fede Valverde, because now he's just gonna have to slot in at right back, because he will do the job, right? That's the problem, that he will do the job.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's yeah. While he's said on many occasions that he doesn't like to play the role, but as you rightly pointed, the point is, at least for me, if I'm giving the option of Raul Asensio or Fede Valverde as right back, as much as I detest that, I would rather go, with the tested and trusted, Fede Valverde, because like he's gonna get the job done no matter, what the position is or what the role is. He's gonna like get his job done. And also, like, in all honesty, this season, I don't know if you would agree or not, but like Fede Valverde actually had played better as a right back than as a midfielder, actually, because I kind of feel like the role that he's been asked to play for under Xabi Alonso has not been so clear to him, or like I think he has not been able to understand and interpret that role in the middle of the park very well. But when he's played as a right back, he's been really good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But also, to add to that point, I don't think he's had as such a big stretch of games where he's consistently featured in midfield, and that sort of variation in terms of where you're going to start the next game really, really, it must take a toll on even a player like Valverde who's accustomed to playing in different positions. You don't have clarity on your role and I know this because he was also featured as a deep lying midfielder after Cruz left, and that didn't work for too long, right? Like you essentially taking out the dynamism in Valverde's game, where he's a box to box midfielder who's going to offer you a lot of running up and down. So if you're then planning to keep him even in a deep midfield position, it might not be the best idea because again, his passing range is not particularly his best strength. So it's very important that you position Valverde in the perfect role, not too wide, out wide, but also not too deep in midfield.
Yeah, actually, that's a very fair point. Continuity matters a lot. I think, for players, especially at this level, even though Freddie, as you rightly pointed, also is used to playing in different positions. To be able to build, especially under a new coach that's having more attention to detail and the more tactical aspect of what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's important even to have continuity there to be able to understand better and interpret the role. Gonna just have to deal with what we have right now. Like, I mean, Trent is injured, Carvalho is injured. We have to find internal solutions. But I don't know. Do you anticipate any chance whereby, I think there's a guy called Fortea, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, from the academy. From the youth squad, or do you think this is just Carlo Ancelotti 2.0?
I think purely because he is in a very difficult position. With regards to our form right now, he would be inclined not to take that risk. But if things were going as they were earlier in the season and Real Madrid were scoring goals regularly and the rest of the defense, at least I should say, was sorted, I think Xabi Alonso would be the kind of coach to take that risk. And he is a coach who will give those youngsters the backing to perform in the youth side. And again, coaches in the past, I know Zinedine Zidane gave a lot of the youth players their debuts in the senior squad, but again, that was more out of circumstance than out of choice. But again, you could say that about any up and coming player that comes through the academy. But if Xabi Alonso sees talent, and I'm sure there is talent among the ranks of La Fabrica, I don't think he would hesitate, giving a player time or even fielding him on the bench in case, fingers crossed, in case Valverde gets injured.
Yeah, fingers crossed. When knock on wood, as they say, and let's not jinx that as well. But yeah, Fede is like Mr. Reliable. But I think we have how many games left? I think we have 4 games in the league, or 3 if I'm not wrong, and 1 in the Champions League, and then we go for the winter break. Yeah, and then it's the winter break, right? So at least that will give a bit of a chance for reset and all, and hopefully when with the turn of the year comes at the return of Carvalho, but of course, like you're not gonna just throw him into the deep end as well. There's a bit of adaptation and stuff like that. So at least it give the players a bit of chance, to sit down, reset, recalibrate. Because I feel like we're gonna be seeing a lot of swapping out and swapping, Fede Valverde and maybe who knows, Raul Asensio, even an academy player. But I do feel like the academy player thing is going to come more towards, early January when Copa del Rey rolls around. In the Copa, then you're going to we're going to see a lot of those. And so to kind of test the waters with, unknown entities and stuff like that.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah, moving on. We go now to the Celta game, and let's talk about Kylian Mbappe. Do you think there's a Kylian Mbappe dependence in this team?
Yeah, this was one of the major talking points among the commentators as the Athletic Bilbao game commenced. And honestly, even that game did not, let down on this whole narrative, which which has some backing to it, right? The evidence does suggest that Mbappe's goals and even his assists, his playmaking abilities have been incredibly crucial. I think people tend to forget that he is also pretty much this team's among this team's best creators of chances for his teammates. It's not just him putting the ball in the back of the net. Um, and people tend to overlook that there is a clear dependency on one is it's just his presence as a number nine. I think gone um that has gone a good distance in making teams wary of one his runs behind the defense, because teams now will generally push their defense back a few yards, owing to his tendency to run in behind the lines, and we know how quick he is. And also, he's just become a slightly smarter finisher, a poacher in the box, whatever you might call it. So there are aspects to his game that he's improved, and there's also just this mentality around him, and the players around him, that he is at the moment the most reliable player in this team. So uh, I don't doubt the fact that there is a dependency on this particular player, but that's why you get players like Mbappe. It just would be a shame to not um, you know not be dependent on a world class player, but also to the extent that we have been dependent on him. I think is what most people are surprised by, because in a squad that also has a lot of talent elsewhere, in the form of Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Junior, Rodrigo, who's not playing. We have Trent. You should not have to look for towards Mbappe for inspiration every time. It was understandable at PSG because, again, no, actually it was not even understandable at PSG. They had an incredible squad, uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, it shouldn't be there to the extent uh, at which it is right now, especially not in terms of goal scoring. I know certain players uh, around the squad will be eyeing those goal scoring numbers, especially Bellingham. If given a chance, Gonzalo Garcia will score a few goals by the end of the season.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Like that's really true. Like if given the chance, we get a few goals in there. So what's let me ask you about like what you think is going on with Rodrigo. I think like Rodrigo is been at 30 games now, 31 games without scoring. Like it's quite strange what's happened to him. Like 30 goals, that's a lot. Like I mean, that predates whatever happened with Xavi Alonso like thereof, and he's had some chances. He started some games here and there as well, but like he just doesn't seem to be able to find uh be among the creators for this team. I don't know, like is there anything you think is the reason why we're seeing this kind of play from
I just think, again, Rodrigo is an incredible professional one, and we saw how good of an athlete he is, and I'm sure he still is, even after all this. So there's no doubting his talent and his ability. Uh, I just think that all of this a little bit has gotten to his head. All this squad building around him, players like Mbappe coming to the stage, players like Vinicius, taking their opportunity a couple years back. Uh, the shift in mentality does play a role, and that has taken a hint on his confidence, because when you see him on the pitch, he looks like a dejected version of the player that he used to be like. He looks like a shadow of his former self. And that is saying something for a guy like Rodrigo, who can light up a pitch with even just a few touches, right? Because remember, Farouk, when this guy started, we considered Rodrigo to have a higher ceiling than Vinicius.
yeah.
Vinicius on his day was great, but Rodrigo was performing consistently, and Rodrigo did not have, he has never had attitude issues or a discipline issue at Real Madrid. It's just a matter of him not grabbing the opportunity. And like you mentioned, this predates what this predates the Xabi Alonso era, so there's nothing you can do to um, blame this entirely on Xabi. Of course, he hasn't been Xabi's first choice, and that's unfortunate. But when he does get the opportunity, I don't think he shows up consistently enough, and his head just isn't there. And the more we watch off Rodrigo, both on the bench and on the pitch, it does seem like we're heading towards a likely exit.
Yeah, I mean that's what it looks like, especially in the World Cup season. I do feel like hopefully, he can, I don't know, find his best with us or away from us, whatever it is, because he's been really like a really great for us. He's given us a lot of beautiful moments, and so I think it's only fair that we wish him the very best, and yeah, wish him, also to get a spot in the Brazil national team squad as well. Go into the USA in the summer of 26. Anyways, with all that out of the way, like we talked about all of this, so what do you anticipate to look like when we play Celta at the Bernabeu?
Yeah, I fully think Celta Vigo will come to the Bernabeu with nothing to lose because they haven't been in the greatest of forms. If you just look at the record, they're 12th in the league after 14 games, 16 points. And they just lost at home 1-0 to Espanyol coming into this fixture. So a team who has nothing to lose will come out and play, their best football in the first 10 or 15 minutes. And if they can strike, and within those 15 minutes, as is what happens with teams like this when Real Madrid don't wake up. Some of those players need a wake up call in the first few minutes of the game, and that it can strike a blow. But if that does go Celta's way, then they will likely sit in their shell and try and defend and sit on that lead for the rest of the game. But I do think Real Madrid, once they settle into the game, will dominate as they usually do against Celta, home or away.
Yeah, absolutely. I expect that as well. And considering, as you talked about, the form of Celta is not the best, and also like we have won I think all our six. There has been particular at the Bernabeu of the season, so I do anticipate, also a continuation of what we saw at the San Mames, more improved and all from the players. Yeah, and I think we talk about the lineups as well. I expect that we're gonna have Thibaut in goal once again. As a right back, Calvaro Carreras, center back pairing again of Militao and Rudiger. And then, the right back is where the question becomes like, is it Fede Valverde or is it Raul Asensio? And I would just think, it's going to be Fede Valverde there. I'm not really sure how that, plays into the lack of midfielders as well. I don't know. What do you think about that? Or how do you think the midfield is going to shape up? Yeah, how do I see it?
Yeah, so I would bring Arda into the team then, and then the rest of the midfield will come up in Gaza. So Arda, Tchouaméni, Bellingham, and then also Vinicius, Mbappe, and if Mastantuono is fit, I would give him a run because he hasn't played for a while, and the game at the Bernabeu against a struggling Celta Vigo side would be the perfect game to have him get a run out, test his fitness.
Yeah. That's fair. That's a fair point, actually. Well, actually, I was thinking more in the direction of Dani Ceballos or, Rodrigo, actually. I get to Dani Ceballos, a different profile of a midfielder, also like giving Rodrigo a run out, But then it seems to be like with Xabi Alonso, he doesn't want to start both Vinicius and Rodrigo together. So I think maybe that could be, at least that's what we've seen. Like they've played, sporadically together, honestly. So I do think, Franco Mastantuono might be an option, or like Dani Ceballos just to, shore up the midfield as well. Both of them, could be quite interesting options.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, I guess also Brahim Diaz is someone we haven't seen on the pitch for a while. We know he offers both.
Yeah, Brahim as well.
Yeah, he offers a lot going both ways. Going both ways when he does play. It's just that he doesn't really fit into this team in a direct sense. So you have to kind of nudge and see where he can play. But I would love to see Brahim play a few minutes at the Bernabeu again.
Yeah, that could be quite, an interesting one as well, starting Brahim as well. But I've always had the feeling that Brahim has always been a better impact player than a starter. But
certainly.
Yeah. So, anyways, like guess we'll have to wait to see how all that pans out. We can slowly wrap things up. I'll start by saying I envision, another 3-0 Real Madrid victory. I think it's going to be a bit comfortable. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a comfortable game for Real Madrid. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm not jinxing it. And yeah, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I would actually say a 3-1 victory.
A 3-1 victory.
Yeah,
Okay. So we don't keep the clean sheet then.
I mean, we have conceded against teams with shit attacks, and we've
Yeah.
done weird things this season. So making predictions about Real Madrid's scorelines this season is a bit difficult, because who would have seen the 4-3 against Olympiacos, honestly, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we don't see anything
Yeah.
coming.
But the 3-0 out of the San Mames as well was a very shocking one as well. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, all right, then I guess with that we can slowly wrap things up and do housekeeping. Shout out to our sponsors, Talksport. You can find the description to everything in the links in the description below. We are officially part of the Talksport Fan Network. Also, shout out to our partners on Instagram, Real Madrid Committee. You can find the link to their Instagram in the description below as well. I just show them some love, drop some likes. They have really good fan art. And also, finally, don't forget to like, subscribe, and also hit the bell button on the channel, and tell a friend to tell a friend and to tell a friend. And with that, we sign out by saying Hala Madrid.
Real Madrid.